Then I start bringing it out against higher level opponents. Okay, so I can land this one shot on most of the newer fighters that are very experienced. What does that get me? Not very much when it comes to the final later rounds of Crown, right? So now I want to start trying that in practice on high level opponents. So that's where video comes in again. Instead of, adding to the discussion you will hopefully have with the person you're fighting on why it didn't work, it also gives you that historical video data that you can. And the final step, I think, is once you've got that shot, once you've nailed it through that process, then you're now deploying it in tournaments for your advantage. So really, long and short of it is, use video along that learning process, insert it in, and it can be a really good tool. Any questions or comments on that? Cool.
I'd like to just also add that, we spend a lot of time analyzing our own fights, watching what we're doing and how our opponents react to it. I spend a lot of time also analyzing other people's fights, not just to figure out what they're doing, but figuring it out from my perspective. So I might be watching a certain person do a certain blow or a certain defensive technique at work, and I'll watch it thinking about myself doing it. And I'll watch it over and over again and try it and watch them again and pick up little hints about how they shift their balance and work. And so when I'm doing it, I'm not just looking at them and how they do it. I'm trying to visualize myself doing it and trying to copy it. And it's all those little details that you miss from just watching them once, twice, as you can get by seeing the video over and over again.
So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the lifespan of video. I don't look at video from 2 months ago when I'm trying to build technique or look at an aspect of my fighting. I try and use the most recent, most up-to-date video as I possibly can. I look at video of myself 3 months ago, 6 months ago. Hopefully, I've corrected a lot of those mistakes. Hopefully, I'm making new ones, and I can get into what I'm doing now. What did I do in my fight against Max on Monday that I can take into my practice this Monday and correct? One thing we see a lot of times, especially with people that don't necessarily talk a lot, I think everybody's maybe seen these guys that are fighting 10, 15, 20 years, and they've been doing the same mistakes for 10, 15 years. A lot of that's because they're not analyzing themselves truthfully. They're not talking to other people about the mistakes they're making. So my thing that I've tried to do since I've started fighting is I want to stamp out bad habits within a month. I don't think a bad habit should go on longer than a month. If you've got video resources, if you've got open and honest communication with the people you're fighting, those bad habits shouldn't develop. You should be in a constant state of change where every week you're noticing new mistakes, new things to look at and work on. And that's where video comes in, because it's really hard to pick those things up during fight practice, especially if you don't have, one of those instant replay memories that some people do where you can just fire it off. A lot of people get lost in the moment. Video gives you that absolute 100% honest, truthful view of what happened in the fight.
So you said you had video of your first fight. How long were you not squired before you became squired? 6 months, a year? Over a year.
Over a year and a half to 2 years.
Because that was one of my biggest things when I wasn't squired was I'd go to a fight practice and they'd say, your feet, you look like you're standing still. I would worry about that for 2, 3 weeks of fight practice, and somebody else would say, you're not moving your shoulder. I'd completely forget about my feet and start doing my shield. And I never had a coach or a tool to say, am I doing it or not doing it? Is this a problem?
I definitely relied heavily on the local people in my practice, but to blow my own ego up here a lot, I relied on myself a lot when I was starting out. I didn't have a real direct teacher I would go to, so I would look at video and then I would compare that to the greats and what they were doing, and I would go, okay, I want to do this, in the video I'm trying to do this, but it doesn't look like this. What do I need to do to get from A to Z? And sometimes that would involve conversations with guys like off-court practice, other times it's video, and so on.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's striking me out of this is in sports psychology and training across sports in general, there's basically two methodologies for training. There's behavior, which it seems like we're using our analysis here to say this is going to be wrong, and we're going to correct these things, which is certainly a very traditional and successful method. But what about using a success-driven model where we're saying, I'm going to isolate a very few, especially for newer fighters, I'm going to isolate a very small set of things. I'm going to do them well in the pedal, and then I'm going to translate them. Right? And so I'm looking for the success and to drive success rather than trying to put everything out there. And so it's a combination of isolation and using video to isolate the things I'm doing successfully. Have you thought, I sense that there's probably another message here that you're probably doing a combination of both. I just want to get kind of where you are.
Definitely, I will say I'm definitely more failure-driven. I've got the next section probably goes into what I call the F word, which is failure. The way I look at a fight is that if I defeated you in a fight, I didn't win because I'm a god with a stick and I did this amazing thing. I look at it because you failed at some point, rather with technique or with timing. Did you simply not bring your shield up enough because you didn't have enough technique to do it? Or did you time it completely wrong because you were doing something else, right? As far as success is driven, the way I started to build my technique library was I would develop my snap. Snap is the first thing I did, right? So develop it on the pedal, develop it at practice. I'm getting criticism, I'm getting compliment the entire way through. Once I've got my snap, it goes in the library, and then I go on to the next thing. So the next thing is my wrap. So I'm going to bring that up. During that time, I'm always looking back at video of games as opposed to video of drills, and going back and saying, okay, snap is still good, still that's in check, that's got the check mark. 6 months later, oh man, my snap is really falling apart. We need to go back to that and start the process over. Definitely with newer people. For instance, there's a guy we've got right now in practice who's got this absolutely amazing shot to flip over like that. And he's at the point where success is starting to hamper him because he's had so much success with this shot. This is all he throws at. So constructively, I come and say, buddy, you got this. It's awesome. You were very successful with that shot. Pat on the back, keep him motivated. But let's start steering you into something that initially is not going to be successful, but is only going to add to that library.
I was going to say something with along with the success-driven attitude. I mean, it is a good thing. It is good for keeping people active and encouraged. But it also, because everybody else around here is ever evolving and moving along. If you did start concentrating on, I've got this great shot, right? And you said you keep, yes, it might be successful, but everyone around you has realized that, Ulfgar throws an offside. Okay, I can't go out there and that's one of the challenges that I've had is I've had to start working, or I've wanted to work on other things, make things look like this and throw something else. Because everyone, Ulfgar's he's going to throw an offside. And yes, I was successful at it, and I still can, but I need to look at something else because everyone else is evolving too.
Yeah, and that's a Viscount member of the chivalry saying, I got lots to work on. And with newer fighters, everybody responds to motivation differently. You watch like hockey, right? The Canadian watch a lot of hockey. Right? You've got two types of players, right? You've got the guys on the bench where you need to kind of tap on the shoulder and you're like, you're doing good, but come on, let's pick it up, right? Okay. And then they go there and they'll light up and they'll get 3 goals. And then you got guys that you need to come up from behind, smack him in the head, call him dirty names. He hates you, he hates everybody in the ice, but you get a hat trick anyways, right? So everybody responds to motivation differently. And when you're working with newer people, some people are more driven by the failure model, some people are more driven by the success model, but to me it's an individual thing with each fighter. Personally,